At 04:47 local time, 9 miles southeast of Qeshm Island, the USS Pioneer is doing something no other ship in the U.S. Navy can do, sweeping for mines 3 miles off the Iranian coast in a hull made of wood. Her captain has been inside the 3-mile line for 19 minutes. Unknown to him, a Mohajer drone, propeller-driven, built for one job, is orbiting at 18,000 feet, sending his position ashore in real time. 200 mines are sitting in the dark ahead of him. Pioneer's hull sonar paints the first one at 04:51, a Mehan 3 influence weapon, Iran's modern moored mine, 220 kilograms of high explosive sitting 60 feet down on a tether, listening for magnetic or acoustic whisper of a ship overhead. Think of it as a deaf bouncer at the door of a nightclub, silent until something loud and metal walks in, and then it doesn't ask twice. The captain logs the contact and keeps working. He has 6 hours of daylight, 6 nautical miles of shipping lane, and a suspected mine count that turns the whole corridor into one continuous field. The VLCC waiting on him in the Gulf of Oman, a very large crude carrier, nearly a quarter mile of double-hulled steel hauling 2 million barrels of oil, is sitting at anchor at $80,000 a day in war risk premiums, the kind of math that concentrates the mind in a hurry. Several minutes later, Pioneer sonar paints a contact 50 feet down that isn't a mine. Too long, too flat, wrong geometry for a tethered sphere. Probably a shipping container that rolled off a freighter in a Shamal storm 10 years ago. He takes it off the queue and keeps working. 11 mine-like contacts have hit his display in this leg alone. Clearing the Strait of Hormuz is less like bomb disposal and more like sorting a dumpster blindfolded, except some of the trash is live and you can't put it back. 300 yards off the same grid square, Roadrunner 64 pulses a blue-green laser through a water column and finds nothing. The MH-60S Seahawk's ALMDS, Airborne Laser Mine Detection System pod, only sees the top 30 feet of seawater. Anything below that might as well be on the moon. The Archerfish slung on her starboard pylon stays on the rail. There's nothing in the laser's window to hand it. 4 platforms, 4 blind spots. Pioneer feels the Gulf floor down to 100 meters, but can't tell a mine from a container without a camera on it. She's a 34-year-old wooden boat the Navy built when the Cold War was still cold. Irreplaceable, not because she's the best, but because she's the only one. Roadrunner 64 classifies a floating weapon in 2 seconds, but can't punch its laser below the shallow zone. Tulsa runs the deep water lane with an AQS-20 Charlie towed sonar the size of a small car, but draws too much water for the shallows. Anything Iran buried under silt is invisible until a human swims down with his hands. Some of the contacts down there are 220 milligrams of underwater high explosive, and the guy who planted them is watching you work from 3 miles away. Above Pioneer, the Mohajer drone orbits and hands her position to every coastal battery on Qeshm, the aerial equivalent of a guy on a balcony shouting your dinner order to the kitchen. Pioneer's radar warning receiver lights up, fades, lights up again. A Ghadir coastal search radar is running intermittent pulses, 2 seconds on, 5 off, 2 on. The Iranian operator already has the Mohajer's feed. He's reminding the task group he's there, which is the radar equivalent of leaving a passive-aggressive post-it note on someone's door. Helpful, but mostly about making sure you know he's home. 50 nautical miles south of Pioneer, off the Omani coast, an aircraft called Pelican 1 crosses the operating area at 28,000 feet on a flight plan filed as routine electronic surveillance. She's been up since 03:15. The Iranians have her tagged as a P-8 on a listening run. Nothing to worry about, nothing to shut down for. Nobody on the Iranian side pays her much attention. By 05:41, 4 of Pioneer's 11 contacts are walked off as debris. 1 is real and queued for the Sea Fox. 3 more are queued for Roadrunner 64. The captain keeps the Avenger at 7 knots through the shallows and thinks about the mines he hasn't seen yet. Behind him, Tulsa's sonar just flagged its first bottom mine in the deeper water lane. The day hasn't started, and every time that Ghadir radar goes hot, someone no one has mentioned is writing down the frequency. At 06:12, 3 things happen in 90 seconds. Roadrunner 64 drops to 100 feet above the chop and pickles off her starboard pylon. The destructor kicks off the rail, slams into the chop, and screams toward the Mahan 3 Pioneer flagged 40 minutes ago. Mike 1 comes off the board. What the mine never heard coming was the Archerfish, a remote-controlled torpedo on a fishing line, about 7 pounds of shaped charge on a fiber optic leash, run by an operator in the back of the helicopter over a cable you can't jam because it's a physical wire between helo and weapon. Think of it as a drone you fly into a bomb. No Wi-Fi, no signal to hack, just copper and explosives. The Archerfish costs about $200,000. The mine it just handled was threatening a tanker hauling $180 million in crude oil. That's the kind of return on investment that would make a hedge fund manager weep. Range, about 1 kilometer, about from the White House to the Washington Monument. The pressure wave rolls through the water and thumps Pioneer's Oak hull a second later. Before it clears, Pioneer's Sea Fox is already in the water. The tethered ROV crawls out of the stern well on a 3,000-foot umbilical, runs down the slope toward the second Mahan 3, centers its crosshairs on the sensor dome, and cooks off. Mike 2. No comms loss, no jamming, nothing electronic for Iran to break. The Sea Fox is older than most of the Pioneer's crew. 85 pounds, 3-pound shaped charge, operated over an umbilical because the design predates reliable wireless. Think of it as a remote-controlled car on a 3,000-foot extension cord. Your kid's toy, except the toy swims down to a mine and headbutts it. The Iranian engineer who designed the Mahan 3 built it to defeat modern minesweepers. The Sea Fox is not modern, but it's handling his mines anyway. 11 miles south, Tulsa's USV unmanned surface vessel, a robot boat the Navy sends into minefields because Iran can scuttle it without risking any Americans, drags a magnetic-acoustic sweep rig at 14 knots, mimicking a 300,000-ton crude tanker running overhead. 3 Mahan 7 bottom mines read the fake, decide a tanker is passing above them, and cook off into empty water in 90 seconds flat. 3 485-pound warheads fooled by a duck call. 5 mines off the board in 90 seconds. From the shoreline above Qeshm, a Gadir search radar goes to full power for the first time this morning, holds on the task group for 30 seconds, and shuts off. A Noor missile battery needs a firing solution before launch, and that starts with a search radar lighting up long enough to pin down bearing, range, and speed. 30 seconds is enough for all 3. The Noor is Iran's reverse-engineered Charlie 802. They copied the Chinese homework and changed the font. 1,500 pounds, Mach 0.9, 363-pound warhead, active radar seeker in the nose, shouting into the darkness and locking on whatever shouts back. Picture a Volkswagen Beetle doing 680 miles per hour 3 feet above the water. Range from Qeshm to Pioneer is 3.5 miles. That's about downtown Denver to the foothills, covered in about 30 seconds. The Iranian commander hasn't committed to the fire control radar yet, the last rung before launch. He's staring at Pioneer through electronic binoculars, deciding whether a wooden ship 3 miles off his coast is worth the political cost. Every time he lights up his Gadir, somebody is writing it down. He doesn't know that yet. The next contact paints at 0648, a Mahan 3 in 4 meters of water. Shallow even for Pioneer. The captain takes the Avenger inside the 3-mile line to reach it. 3.5 miles off the coast is the edge of the envelope. 3 miles is inside it. He knows this. So does the Iranian commander, who lights his search radar for the second time in 20 minutes and holds it for 45 seconds. Roadrunner 6-4 orbits at 700 feet, spots the Mahan 3 shadow through the glare, and pickles an Archerfish. Mike 6 comes off the board. The radar on the coast shuts down. Pioneer backs the Avenger out of the 3-mile line at 5 knots, a wooden ship at brisk walking pace, reversing out of the envelope of a 165-kilogram warhead moving at Mach 0.9. The captain makes a note that he's now living the kind of life his recruiter failed to mention. At 0711, 4 miles north of Pioneer, the dust comes. A shamal is the Persian Gulf specialty, a dry northwesterly that picks up half of Iraq and blows it downwind at 40 knots. Visibility drops from 12 miles to 1 in under 10 minutes. Roadrunner 6-4's ALMDS operator watches her display go from clean laser returns to smeared noise to nothing. The pod is firing. The pulses just aren't coming back clean. Roadrunner 6-4 turns for Tulsa and calls the abort. A cluster of 6 Mahan 3s in the northern shallow stretch contacts the helo was queued to service, goes back onto Pioneer's queue. The Avenger is now covering a $40 million helicopter with a 34-year-old wooden hull, 1 Sea Fox, and 2 hours of daylight before the tanker window closes. The Iranian commander on the coast is watching the visibility drop too. Pioneer's captain makes the call at 0724. The Avenger has to push to 3.1 miles off the coast to service the contacts Roadrunner 6-4 was supposed to handle. That's inside the engagement range of every Noor battery on Qeshm. His air cover is down for the rest of the Shamal. If Pioneer takes a Noor hit inside 3 miles, the Avenger turns to kindling and the task group loses the only shallow water minesweeper in theater for 6 weeks. The Marshall Islands VLCC, very large crude carrier, 298 meters of double-hulled steel, 2 million barrels, sits another week at 2% war risk premium while a dozen more tankers reroute around the Cape of Good Hope at $1 million per voyage. The captain pushes deeper. The USS Jack H. Lucas follows him in to 4.2 miles, flat hexagonal panels on her superstructure running quiet. Right now, they're a counter-threat. The question isn't whether the Iranian commander can find a firing solution on Pioneer. It's whether he believes Lucas can put a missile in his launcher before his own missile clears the rail. At 0812, the Hawkeye calls it on strike common. Spike, coastal bearing 040, Noor fire control holding. The fire control radar is up. The Lucas's threat warning console paints the pulse on her CIC, Combat Information Center, display. Everyone from the TAO, Tactical Action Officer, down to the radar operator knows what the next 30 seconds mean. Fire control radar doesn't stay lit unless the operator intends to use it. It draws a HARM, high-speed anti-radiation missile, inside 90 seconds. Lighting it is the electronic equivalent of your wife using your first, middle, and last name. You know exactly what's coming next, and running won't help. The Lucas's captain doesn't wait. His Spy 6 slams into full radiated power and whips the main beam onto the Iranian launcher. The destroyer is now painting the Noor battery as hard as the Noor battery is painting Pioneer. The Spy 6 is 37 active panels of gallium nitrate, a security camera that can read a license plate from 3 states away, tracks a baseball at 165 miles, and draws enough electricity to power a Texas subdivision. Behind it, the Lucas's magazines are full of SM-6s, 3,000 pounds, Mach 3.5 terminal, 140-pound warhead with a 240-mile range. That's a mile every second and a half. By the time the Iranian operator finishes saying incoming, the missile's already past the word in. The Lucas is nearly 100 VLS cells. The Noor battery has 2 reloads per launcher. The Iranian operator reads his own threat warning receiver. In 2 seconds, he understands 3 things. The Lucas has geolocated his launcher. SM-6 missiles can reach him in under 4 minutes. And the Lucas has decided she's not firing first. Then his threat display does something it has never done before. Every radar he's been relying on, his own Gadir, the coastal early warning net, the battery's fire control emitter, goes black across his screen simultaneously. Not jammed, not spoofed, actually online. Somewhere in a concrete revetment, an IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps duty officer, is screaming into a phone because every commander up the coast has just gotten the same order from Tehran. Stop transmitting now. The reason sits at 28,000 feet, 50 nautical miles south, where she has been since 0315. Pelican 2-1 is not a P-8 on a routine listening run. She is an EA-18G Growler flying under a call sign the Iranians had misidentified all morning, carrying a full ALQ-218 signal intelligence suite. And she spent 5 hours doing something more dangerous than jamming. She's been listening. Every time the Gadir went to full power to remind Pioneer it was there, the Growler wrote down the frequency, pulse repetition rate, operator signature, Mohajir drone uplinks, and every cross-network handoff between Bandar Abbas and Abu Musa. The Iranian commander thought he was posturing. What he was actually doing was reading the entire IRGC coastal air defense network into an American database, one transmission at a time. Like a poker player who keeps flashing his cards every time he bluffs, except the guy across the table has a photographic memory and a pen. When the Lucas's Spy 6 went hot, Pelican 2-1 went loud on 3 frequencies the Iranians didn't know the Americans had mapped, not to jam, to announce. Every radar operator on the Qeshm coast simultaneously saw an American emitter transmitting on their own network's command channel. The message? We're inside your system. We've been inside your system all morning, and we can turn you off. The fire control pulse cuts out mid-cycle. Somewhere on Qeshm, an IRGC commander runs the same arithmetic every Iranian missile commander has run for 8 weeks, and then runs a second calculation his predecessors never had to. A 165-kilogram warhead against a wooden minesweeper isn't worth the Arleigh Burke that will arrive on top of his battery at Mach 3.5 while his launch plume is still cooling. It's also not worth finding out what else the Americans have been inside of all morning. The Iranians blink first. Nobody fires. Pioneer finishes the cluster by 09:03. 6 more Mahan 3s come off the board. The captain pulls the Avenger back out of the 3-mile line for the second time. At 09:27, Racket 5-1 goes into the water. 4 EOD, explosive ordnance disposal divers, off the USS Michael Murphy's RIB, rigid hull inflatable boat. Working a contact the Kingfish UUV, unmanned underwater vehicle, couldn't classify from sonar alone. 42 feet of salt water, mixed gas rigs, umbilical hoses carrying air and comms. There's a particular kind of work that hasn't been improved on in 80 years. A UUV can find the contact, sonar can map it, a helicopter can mark the coordinates. But when the return says maybe mine, maybe anchor chain, maybe neither, the only way to know is to send a human down with his hands. The robots get you 90% of the way there. The last 10% is still a guy in a wetsuit with his hands out, hoping the thing he's touching isn't the thing that ruins his day. At 35 feet, the silt opens enough for the diver to see the shape. Metallic cylinder, half buried. Maham 7. He confirms visual, attaches magnetic pads, pulls the safety, sets the timer, and fins back at the pace of a man who's done this enough times to know that swimming faster doesn't make the bomb smaller. 8 minutes later, a pressure column erupts 60 meters behind the rib. By 12:47, the Shamal breaks and visibility opens back up. Roadrunner 6-4 relaunches with a fresh ALMDS pad. 23 mines neutralized, more than the entire Avenger-class fleet serviced at the peak of the 1987 tanker war. Pioneer's captain has been on the bridge for 13 hours. His wife thinks he has a desk job in Bahrain. He's going to let her keep thinking that. The final stretch of lane still has 6 contacts Roadrunner 6-4 dropped when the dust came. He points Pioneer back inside the 3-mile line. The Iranian search radars on the coast stay dark, for now at least. The last 6 contacts come off in 90 minutes. Pioneer makes 3 passes through the northern shallow stretch, each one inside 3 miles of the Iranian coast. The Lucas shadows at 4 miles. The Iranian search radars stay dark. Nobody on the coast is eager to transmit on a frequency the Americans may or may not have already owned. Roadrunner 6-4 fires Archerfish on the contacts the Avenger can't get close enough to service. By 14:17, the last Mahan 3 on the queue erupts as a pressure column behind the Pioneer, and the captain takes the Avenger out of the envelope and turns her east. At 14:28, 4 fast-moving returns paint on the Lucas's scope out of Bandar Abbas, bearing 170, closing at 52 knots. Paycap-class, Iranians' fast attack boats, 17 meters, 14 tons, crewed by 3. Kauser anti-ship missiles on the foredeck. A Kauser is 220 pounds, Mach 0.8, 13-mile range. 65-pound warhead that will open a frigate's hull like a can opener. Iran mounts them on a 17-meter motorboat with no armor. 4 $400,000 speedboats carrying warheads are now closing on a $2.4 billion destroyer. The kind of cost ratio that keeps Pentagon accountants awake at night, and IRGC commanders very, very interested. Pioneer's captain watches the returns and understands what the IRGC is doing. The Noor batteries failed this morning. The radar network got mapped. Now the IRGC is escalating down the ladder. Small craft, visual posture, no missile lock, staying outside the legal trigger line. Fire first, and the footage hits Tehran State TV inside the hour. And the IRGC spends the next 6 weeks mining the strait faster than the task group can clear it. The Lucas doesn't flinch. Her 5-inch Mark 45 gun trains on the lead pay cap at 6 miles. What the PACAP CO doesn't know, and what his threat warning receiver won't tell him, is that his information has been inside a Mark 45 firing solution the moment his bow cleared the breakwater. Murphy's MH-60S lifts off with a crew chief on the door gun. Roadrunner 6-4 orbits overhead with the door gun visible, which is the helicopter equivalent of rolling up your sleeves at a family reunion. Nobody's throwing punches, but the message is clear. The PACAPs run to 4 miles. 3, 2. At 1.7 miles, close enough to see faces through binoculars, far enough out that no American captain has legal justification to fire first. The lead boat pulls into a hard starboard turn. The rest follow it back toward Bandar Abbas. 7 minutes, and nobody on either side puts a round in the water. On the Lucas's CIC display, 4 firing solutions quietly go cold. Somewhere in Bandar Abbas, 4 PACAP captains are going to explain to their commander why they turned. That conversation is going to go about as well as explaining to your wife why you drove to the store and came back without the one thing she asked for. At 15:31, Tulsa's sonar paints a new contact at grid square 47 Charlie, the same grid square she cleared at 08:31 this morning. Pioneer's captain stares at the return for 5 seconds before he understands what he's looking at. Iran is reseeding the lane right now while the task group finishes the clearance run. Small craft, fishing dhows. The task group can't clear and hold at the same time. Clearing takes 4 platforms and 6 hours of daylight. Holding takes a fleet the Navy doesn't have in theater. He picks up the handset to the Lucas. The cleared lane window is today. Get the first tanker through now. Come back tomorrow. The Lucas broadcasts the cleared lane coordinate at 1619 on 4 frequencies. Every tanker master in the Gulf of Oman reads the waypoints inside 60 seconds. 7 minutes later, a Marshall Islands VLCC called Pacific Meridian enters the lane. 298 meters of double-hulled steel, 2 million barrels of crude bound for Singapore. First commercial transit through the strait in 6 weeks. Every navigation light burning. AIS transponder blasting her identity. A captain who hasn't slept in 2 days holding the wheel himself. On Pacific Meridian's bridge, the first mate watches the Lucas pass at 4 miles and keys the bridge to bridge in the only English he has ready. Destroyer, destroyer, thank you very much. The Lucas's bridge watch acknowledges with a 2-click mic break. There's no line in the Naval Brevity Code for hell yeah. However, 4 miles north of where Pioneer worked the shallows, a 60-foot wooden dhow pushes out from the Qeshm coast with fishing gear on the stern and no flag flying. No radar signature worth tracking. No weapons worth a warning shot. He crosses into the cleared lane at fishing speed. 200 meters in, the first Haman 7 slides off his stern through a cargo hatch and settles onto the sand. If you enjoyed this video, we think you'll like this other video on screen. Bye for now.